Since the election, we've seen nearly 11,000 millionaires leave this country.
This Labour government in the UK is unfriendly to business.
Sainsbury's are laying people off. That's why Nissan are thinking of leaving. Santander, like I said.
That brings this government down. So everyone has to be ready for a 10-week election. Hi everybody, and welcome back to Nick Talks. This episode's amazing returning guest, as always, it's Ash, the Preston journalist. How you doing, Ash?
Hi Nick, great to be back, thank you.
Let's jump into this. How's our economy doing? I've just seen an article today in the Daily Mail that the supermarkets are letting staff go and is saying it's all down to Rachel Reeves and this Labour government. What's going on?
That's absolutely what's happening. Unfortunately, unions have already come out. I think it's Unite Union, which has been very critical of Labour recently, but they've come out and criticised Sainsbury's, saying that this is profiteering. But you've got, it's not just Sainsbury's either. There's other places, Tesco's the biggest employer in this country. They're having to think about cutbacks now. Nissan are thinking of leaving this country. That's 6,000 jobs in the northeast. Santander have announced they're thinking of leaving. That's nearly 19,000 jobs on their own in this country. We found out that since Labour came in, that's 74,000 less on payrolls. Since the budget, it's 47,000 people less on company payrolls. So that's either people that are unemployed and looking for work and claiming dole, or are just going to say, sod it, I'm going to claim benefits of some description. Adding even more to the welfare bill. They've borrowed 17.8 billion in December, up again from the OBR, the Office of Budget Responsibilities predictions. Things are going horrifically, and now the big, what was it? The flagship tax policy, getting rid of the non-doms. Those greedy, wealthy people, we're sick of them. We're going to take all their taxes, all the money off them through taxation. Well, guess what? They've all left. We've seen in the run-up to the last election when people knew that Labour were going to win, and since the election, we've seen nearly 11,000 millionaires leave this country. That is the equivalent to almost 529,000 average taxpayers like you and me. That's how much revenue they're losing, to such a point now that even Rachel Reeves has had to start saying she's going to roll back, and they're going to put some sort of, basically beg these non-doms to come back to the UK. But they're not going to. The UK isn't the home for these people. They can move to another, they can work and move to another country as easy as they can work from here. And what they'll do is they'll take their companies and they'll take their jobs and they'll take their tax revenue, by the way, with them. Don't forget, the top 1% in this country pay almost 30% of all income tax that goes into the coffers. And that's before we even mention the corporation tax these people might pay, the inheritance tax they might pay, the VAT they might pay, the national insurance they will pay as well, when they employ people and stuff. These non-doms, yes, they're incredibly wealthy, but they also create a lot of wealth and create a lot of jobs, and they're taking it all with them.
For people who don't know what a non-dom is a foreigner who's got businesses in different parts of the world but lives in the UK. And what they do is they pay tax on the business that's only in the UK to the British government. They pay tax on their foreign businesses to other governments or wherever they want to be based. That's a non-dom. So these aren't people who are coming here as a tax haven and not paying any tax. They're paying tax on the companies and businesses they do in the UK. And we now are forcing them to leave or to pay all their tax around the world to the UK government, which they won't do because it's too much. So they're all leaving. Am I correct? And that's what a non-dom is.
That's exactly what a non-dom is. And I think it's, if I was in that position, if I was a multi-billionaire or whatever, and I had loads of businesses around the world, I would expect to pay tax where in the country that business is set up in. I wouldn't expect another government, say the UK, to turn around and say, oh, we're going to tax every asset you've got around the world, because I'd be doing exactly what they're doing now. And I guarantee you, the jobs that get taken out of the UK and go to other countries, wherever it may be, the corporation tax will be less than what they're paying in the UK, and the minimum wage they've got to pay staff in a lot of countries will be a damn sight less than what they're paying in the UK as well. So these people are not having their wealth taken off them by these, by a government that hates successful people. If anything, they're going to get richer off it because they're going elsewhere. Reeves reckoned in the manifesto that about 2% of non-doms would leave the UK as a result of their policies. Well, it's not. It's a lot more than that. They reckon it's every 45 seconds at the moment, a billionaire leaves Britain. And that is seriously damaging. Even she can see, like I said, even she can see the damage that is doing to the tax take now. These policies are going to ruin the economy. They're going to ruin the jobs. And if that wasn't enough, their own policies are ruining jobs. They're the ones bringing in national insurance increases. That's why Sainsbury's are laying people off. That's why Nissan are thinking of leaving. Santander, like I said. And then they got the oil and gas jobs that Miliband on the other side is trying to destroy as well. That's over 240,000 jobs, not just on the rigs, but the supply chains. And then in Aberdeen, people who own pubs or hotels or restaurants that rely on those oil rig workers to come off and have a meal and a few pints and stuff. They they are destroying everything. Our economy, like I just said with the borrowing, it's absolutely mental. We paid last month alone nearly £9 billion just servicing the interest on our debts. 8.9 billion we paid in a month. How the hell are we ever going to decrease the deficit we've got or decrease our national debt if we're paying that much a month to service our interest payments?
Yeah, I don't know how we do it. Well, I know how we do it. We increase the size of the economy. That's the only way to do it. But we can't increase the size of the economy because the people who increase the size of the economy are called entrepreneurs, are called business owners, are called millionaires and billionaires. And we seem to be punishing them. So therefore, they're not going to be increasing the pie in this country. They're going to take that somewhere else and increase someone else's pie and increase their economy. So therefore, our economy is stagnating. It grew last month, was it 0.2%?
0.1, yeah.
Which was Christmas. If you cannot grow your economy at the busiest month of the year when everyone goes in debt and buys everything, if you only increase your economy by 0.1% that month, then you're in big trouble because businesses all fold in January. So businesses are going to fold anyway this month. More will fold because they can't afford the national insurance increases, the extra increases, the extra taxes, the persecution, the extra red tape and bureaucracy. So it's turning into, if we're not careful, it's going to be Armageddon, and we've said this before, back to the 70s, mass unemployment, and we've already sent the message out in the last 6 months that this Labour government in the UK is unfriendly to business. This is not a place to do business. That message was sent the second they won.
Yeah, oh, definitely. October to December or October to New Year is called the Golden Quarter. It's called the Golden Quarter because hospitality, whether that be pubs, restaurants, Christmas markets, for example, like you'd have in Manchester and stuff, that is billions and billions of pounds that people are willing to go out and spend. I myself went to the Christmas markets in Manchester, and I think I came back about £250 light. So
And that was just because you bought 2 hot dogs and a beer.
there you go. Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, of course. But when you're walking around there and you see bits of stuff and things like that, and you do have a few beers, you do have something to eat, and it soon mounts up. But if everybody spends that amount of money, or if everybody spent half that amount of money, and then that's repeated throughout the country in different parts of the country, that is a lot of money going in to small businesses that selling novelty cheeses or like you said, pop-up bars that are selling a few pints and stuff. That is a lot of money. For the economy to only grow 0.1% in the golden quarter is shameful. That is no growth at all. And don't forget, since the budget, the economy kept shrinking. We were 1 month away from actually being an official recession. And a lot of economists, and who know far more than I do about economics, are speculating that the figures were manipulated to make it look like the economy grew because it would have been an official recession if we'd have dropped again.
Yeah, and it's easy to manipulate figures. That's what governments do all the time. All governments mess with figures, and they're messing with them all the time to present the best possible case for them. So the economy is in big trouble. We know that. Has anything else happened recently with this Labour government that you're not happy with?
Nothing's happened that I'm happy with. It's hard to name all it's hard to name all the things that I'm happy with. I don't want to bring it to too much of a somber note, but I must admit, um, something that's really got my goat this week was I've seen the clip repeatedly of Angela Rayner, who was also at that drinks party, by the way, when they'd done that silly trip to Southport. Got that clip of her on the news when she said, "Oh, it's um, fake news, fake news. It's not terrorism and all of that." And she knew by then as well. This lies, the cover-ups. You said it yourself so many times to me. It's not the event itself that brings politicians down. It's the cover-up. Watergate, you've always used it as a very good example of that. It's not what they've done. It's the fact that they've tried to cover it up. That is why Starmer, the very best popularity rating I've seen for this guy is -45. Some of the polls aren't quite as kind, by the way. Some are -60 odd. I've seen the government at -70 odd in some polls. I saw a poll that showed only 11% of people said they were doing well with the economy. I mean, 11%. Who was that 11%, by the way? They should have the vote taken off them, in my opinion. That's absolutely, absolutely mental. But you know what's surprising me? That most of the pollsters, other than one Delta poll I can think of, are giving it pretty neck and neck between three parties, aren't they? They're giving it between the Tories, Labour, and Reform UK, and it all seems to be pretty neck and neck. Some polls Labour a third, some polls Reform a third, some polls the Tories a third, and it really is looking like a pretty two-horse race at the minute. No one's running away with it. Reform UK have had some difficulties, let's just say, recently with some things that are going on. They might have lost some supporters to the Tommy Robinson Unite the Kingdom people. And no one's running away with it, which really tells its own story, doesn't it? No one's really that interested. And Kemi Badenoch is not long for this job now, I don't think. There's a poll just come out about her, which shows that she's not even in the top three with Tory voters to lead the party. She's seventh, Nick. Seventh to lead the party. I mean, nobody wants these leaders. People want something new, and I think Reform UK, I'll stick by what I keep saying. Reform UK that's something new. Whether they fail or not, give them a go. But there's absolutely no enthusiasm out there, it seems, at the moment, for people or voters to change their minds too much. I believe it's probably about 25% each, something like that, and share the rest out between minor parties.
Yeah, no, it's a strange position to be in that we've got three parties now all competing against each other, all on roughly the same number. The only silver lining to that is it means Labour won't be winning the next election, which we knew anyway, but it also means it'll be a coalition between Tories and Reform. And we'll have to see who wins the most seats to who's going to be the most powerful party in that coalition. I said at the very beginning that Kemi Badenoch wouldn't last, was a caretaker for the Tory party. And that's because they still don't know who they are. And Reform have made some mistakes, and they will make mistakes. Like Trump, these people aren't gods. Everybody makes mistakes, so we need to expect mistakes of people. But I still don't think they're playing it. They're still playing it too safe. That could be right or wrong. I don't know, but for me, they're playing it too safe. It's all up in the air. Anything can happen over the next couple of years, and
Go on, sorry.
all I was going to say is, and every single one of them has to be ready because a general election could, at any point, could be 8 weeks away, 10 weeks away, because anything could happen across Europe, across the world, in America, that brings this government down. So everyone has to be ready for a 10-week election.
I'm sure the parties are thinking that. I'd be very surprised if they weren't on red alert just in case something does happen with Trump, or something mysteriously gets leaked to the media about Starmer, for example, or anybody in the cabinet that starts to make this government crumble. Absolutely, it definitely could happen. And I'm, like I said in a previous video, I'm starting to think your way of thinking that this party might not last the 5 years. Although I was almost certain they would. I agree with you on Farage. They're still playing it a bit too safe. What I'd like to see is them talking about other issues as well. It's okay talking about immigration. It's a big issue. It's okay talking about the economy. I agree with their economic policies. I think they're very good. But you've also got to start talking about things like education now. You've also got to talk about the NHS, what you're going to do with the NHS. They've really got to reach out to a broader coalition. You can't just get people like me that sit on the centre right who are willing to vote for conservative economic policies that I think would bring growth to the country, because there's not enough of just people like me. You've got to appeal to the wider country as well. What are you going to do for Blackpool, for example, the most deprived town in the UK? What are you going to do for the people there? How are you going to improve their lives, give them jobs, etc.? And they're the questions that Reform are going to have to answer. I'd also like to see him stop using his default position to attack Tommy Robinson. He's done it again this week, and he wasn't even asked about Tommy Robinson. Just stop using him as your stick as a stick to beat him with, as a distraction. He'll never join us and stuff like that. He's never asked to join you. He doesn't want to join Reform UK. Just stop talking about him. And I'm sure Tom Robinson will never talk about you. And that what I don't think they realise it, Reform UK, but what it is doing that is like it's putting a lot of people off voting for Reform. Because like it or not, a lot of people who probably wouldn't vote for Tommy Robinson if he stood in an election still respect the fact that he is the one who brought this grooming gangs issue to the front. He's the one that was out there talking about it, often not wisely, I grant you. Things like the EDL and that. I went to one of those marches and I saw what a bunch of tosses they were, to be quite honest with you. But nevertheless, he brought that issue to the forefront. And that has got him a lot of respect from people who normally would just say, oh, he's a racist, forget about him, we're not bothered about him. But Farage has got to stop using is an easy thing to attack him with. It's just a stupid thing to do. Talk about real policies. And also, they've got to make sure, I heard this phrase on the radio. Someone said they've got to make Reform UK got to make sure they don't become a refugee camp for failed Conservatives. And I thought, what a great turn of phrase that is. Because I don't know if you've seen the news or not. Suella Braverman's come out and said that she'd love to see a merger with Reform UK. And I thought, no, don't start saying these things now, because I think Suella Braverman should actually defect. She should get out of the Tories, because I think she'd be very, very welcome inside Reform UK. But as we've said before in videos, they've got to be very, very careful who they take from the Conservative Party. Suella Braverman is just one of maybe two or three that I would say, yeah, all right, join Reform, you'd probably fit in quite well, but nobody else.
No, I agree. They're becoming. The risk was always for Reform that Nigel Farage wanted to make Reform into the Tory party he wanted. But what he doesn't realise, or maybe he doesn't realise, is nobody wants a new Tory party. Nobody wants an improved Labour Party. People want change. People want something different. People are crying out. And I think Reform need to start concentrating more on crime, coming up with crime policies, because it's affecting all of us. And I think they need to start painting a vision, a patriotic vision of the country, a bit like what Trump's done. They need to be saying, we are the British party for the British people. And that's not a racist statement. There's lots of black and Asian people in Reform. And a lot of them are very patriotic, fantastic. But he needs to be painting a vision, because most people are not involved in politics and don't understand politics and don't care about politics. They want to buy into a dream. They want to buy into a journey and nowhere. And because people are very pragmatic. I know people who say, I don't mind going through hard times now, as long as my children have a better life 10 years from now. People are willing to sacrifice their short-term life if it improves their children and grandchildren's lives. And they're the messages we need to be sending to people.
Definitely, yeah. And that's why I'm saying they need to start talking about these issues, come out with some proper policies. That's why one of the reasons why Kemi's so unpopular in the Tory party. They essentially have no policies. And I think there's a bit of I'm a conspiracy theorist here, by the way, it sounds like it, but I think there's a plot to oust Kemi. I don't believe she's a stupid woman by any stretch. I think she's an intelligent woman. She clearly is. She's a qualified engineer and stuff, isn't she? She's not stupid at all. How is it she can walk into every single PMQs every single week and miss the issue of the week? Every single time. She spent this week, I don't know if you saw it or not, talking about schools, which is important, fine. But we've just had the verdict or the pleading guilty of that guy from the Southport attacks. Hammer Starmer on all 6 questions. He's there for the taking. Everybody saw him in that press conference with the media. He was absolutely cracked. He was going through his script like this, and he'd ran out of scripted answers to give. I was actually surprised at how robust the mainstream media were with him, actually. It was very quite refreshing by some of them at least. But this is part of the problem. And what I'm trying to say, I think, Reform UK, as a turn off phrase I've used before, they're pushing at an open door. If only they can pick the right doors to push at. Hammer, Starmer, be more robust. And you can let Lee Anderson say the inappropriate things because that's basically his job. You can let Rupert Law come out with the more intelligent stuff, the statistics, the stats. He's got whistleblowers all over the place giving him information. That's good. But you need your leader, Farage, to be hammering Kemi, to be hammering Farage. Don't, as you just said, try and form the next Tory party because we don't want it. The days of the Thatcherite Tory party, Farage is a Thatcherite. Don't don't try and say that we're going to do this again because it's been done, it's been tried, and it hasn't done much for the country. You want to be that reform. The whole point was, the word reform means to change things. So you've got to give complete alternatives to those two mainstream parties because there are millions upon millions of people in this country who are willing to vote for anything other than the Tories, the Lib Dems, and the Labour Party because they're sick to death of all three of them. The Lib Dems not so much because no one really bothers about them too much, but certainly the Uni Party and the Labour and the Tories. If a credible party with credible policies attacks them and shows the public what they're going to do different to the Uni Party that's destroyed this country and put it in the position that it's in today, they would win 12, 15 million votes, and that's enough to win a general election by average turnout.
Completely agree. Completely agree. And I think that's
like ranting there, didn't I?
Yeah, no, but you're spot on. Spot on. The people don't want more of the same. They don't want a better version of more of the same. People want change. Reform need to be that change if they're going to be successful. And hopefully they will. And hopefully they will be successful. Ash, cheers for coming back on. And let's do this again soon.
Yeah. Cheers, Nick. Thank you.
Thank you.